Ready. Good evening. I'd like to call the February 2nd meeting of Mount Vernon Board of Education to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trustee Farron, Trustee Jaros,
Here.
Trustee McDowell, Trustee Miller, Trustee Saunders,
Here.
Trustee White,
Present.
Trustee Neal, Trustee McOwen, Trustee Zamora. All is present. We need a motion to enter into executive session for the purposes of discussing the employment history of a person or persons, a special education matter, collective bargaining negotiations with the Mount Vernon Federation of Teachers, and contract negotiations with a third-party vendor.
So moved.
Trustee Jaros and Trustee Saunders, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
40 minutes, we'll be back.
How many? 40. Maybe less, maybe less.
Maybe more.
What's going on, man? Good.
Oh, it's going.
We love it when you get to come inside.
Okay. I hope it's good news. Okay.
Hey, that looks pretty cool today. How about you? I look good. I like it.
Good. Because we were happy last time we chatted.
Okay.
So I can set you up right now.
On the printer, okay, I'll go get it. Well, nice to see you again. How's everything? Happy New Year.
Oh, I didn't know that. You set up an appointment. You, not with me. I didn't get it. No, I think they're like a hundred ways. But I can really go wrong. You just responded.
Not like before, but I agree. I'm fine with that.
That's a good thing.
I was telling you when I don't hear
Excuse me, I'd like to motion to reconvene into public session. I don't think that's Motion to reconvene into public session, please.
So moved.
Trustee Jaros, Trustee Saunders, all those in favor?
Aye.
Quorum is present. Mr. McOwen is not present. Communications from the public. Good evening. There's no legal requirement to recognize public comment at meetings of the Board of Education. However, the Mount Vernon Board of Education recognizes the critical importance of community discourse and involvement in the education of Mount Vernon's children, and accordingly, members of the public are invited to speak at each regularly scheduled board meeting, subject to the terms of the board policy. Any resident of Mount Vernon, any student, parent, or guardian of a student, teacher, administrator, or employee of the Mount Vernon City School District are permitted to speak. No other person shall be permitted to speak without approval of the board. A speaker must register in advance by no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting by contacting the district clerk in person at 165 North Columbus Avenue, Mount Vernon, New York, by phone at 914-665-5235, or by email rmccormack@mtvernoncsd.org. When registering, speakers are requested to indicate the nature of their remarks. For example, whether the comments relate to a specific item on that meeting's agenda, to a concern or a particular school, or a general concern of the district. The board always welcomes respectful comment, whether praise or criticism. However, identifying and criticizing a specific student, parent, teacher, administrator, or other Mount Vernon education official or employee is prohibited. Any such complaint must be presented and addressed through the proper administrative channels. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to speak, with up to 1 additional minute to be used to summarize and conclude their remarks. If appropriate, the board of trustees and/or the superintendent may immediately respond to the speaker's remarks. That said, we have 3 speakers this evening. Our first speaker is Ms. Dorothy Aristide. Our next speaker is Ms. Joy Nemhard.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Superintendent, Dr. Hamilton, trustees, and administrators, and members of the community. I'm glad to be here again. I would like to speak this evening on the issue of college preparation. And the reason why is because it was brought to my attention, being still very interested in the line of education and the children, and my own children at home. And I got the motivation from one of your students at the high school. And when I called the clerk of the board to tell him, I made a mistake and said the name. I wanted to be objective. and this even one of my daughters said, "Mommy, don't say the name." So what happens is that my girls have been accepted to maybe about 6 colleges. And they have been friends ever since they attended Lincoln School. So he's at my house all the time. So I said to him, what colleges are you going? So he said, I don't know. So I said, how come you don't know? At the time, it was the friends, my girls were telling me about the college there. So he said, my counselor does it for me. So I said, your college does, and she didn't tell you which college she applied to? And he said, no. So that was a concern, because during this process, I have learned so much, and with this technology, it's so nice, and it's so good for the children to see them do their SAT, their SAT, writing their college essays, sending in their report to different colleges, making the choice of the colleges that they want to attend, and getting back an answer from them. It was good information, and at this time, there was a kid from the Mount Vernon High School. He didn't know where he was going because his counselor did it all for him. Now, it took a turn, because this evening he came to my house, and he said, I think Mercy and University of Tampa, and there was a third. So, and Mr. Rick had looked it up also. My question is, what is being done to help the children to go through this process for themselves? Because I think it's very important, if they are going on to college, to know the procedures, know how they do it in line, know that they can go on the computer and they can see those colleges that they're accepted to. They can know the retention rate, they can know those who leave, the rate of students who leave the college, the rates of successes who, and so forth. It's really, he doesn't know anything. He is lost. And then, finally, he came this evening and he said he left school at 12 o'clock because all his teachers left. He had no teachers. And so I said, there was no permission? And he said, no. He just left school at 12 o'clock. He had no teachers to teach him.
Okay, Ms. Nemhard.
I can respond to some. First of all, it would be very hard for me to believe that teachers just all left at one time.
Okay.
But I'll look into it, certainly. But that would be very surprising. It's the first I've heard of that. I would think that if that happened, I would have had to flood my phone lines would have been flooded. But I will look into that. And it's interesting that you bring this up at this time. There's an episode on the internet on Soup Scoop where Mrs. Tiggs, who is our standards administrator for guidance, In this episode, we talk about the college process, the role of the guidance counselor, what parents should expect of their child's guidance counselors, the financial aid process, when the applications are due, how you get that application. The first segment of the show, actually the first segment of the show is devoted to the role of the guidance counselor in the college admission process. So that information has been out there, and guidance counselors are also aware of what their roles and responsibilities are. So that experience that you just described, hopefully is an anomaly and certainly something worth looking into. But more importantly, we do have a uniform process in place in terms of what our guidance counselors are expected to know and be able to do as it relates to the financial aid and college admission process and assisting kids with taking responsibility, and parents with taking responsibility for that role.
Our last speaker this evening is Mr. Tom Keller. The first person in the show.
Is the clock gonna be set?
There it is.
Isn't it set at 3 minutes?
Go. It's up here.
The bottom of the
It
screen.
says 7:31 though, doesn't it?
At the bottom of the
that's
screen.
on the
screen. On the screen. Another space.
You're wasting time,
13
Tom.
seconds.
Utility tax. No utility tax in this year's budget, 2.3 million. Find some other way to make up that 2.3 million. Employees. I was amazed that about a month ago, Ms. Gagny presented a presentation. 1,995 employees in the district. When the ICA was in control, there were 10,500 students, 12 to 1,400 employees. We have 2,500 fewer students. Back out the Amani Charter School, the other students there, 8,000 students. Amani Charter School, 50 to 60 employees, 320 students, 1 to 6, 1 to 5.3, 1 to 6.4, rounded 1 to 6. New Rochelle, 1,650 full-time employees, 11,000 students, 1 to 6.7, rounded 1 to 7. Yonkers, 3,579, 26,489, 1 to 7.4. Is this Empire Building here? What's the reason for it? 1 to 4. The bond issue. We need the in-house architect to have dual reporting, not only to the administration, but to the board. It's similar to the public arena, private companies, where the internal auditor reports to the chief financial officer, but that person also reports to the board, because we want checks and balances. We need a forensic audit of previous bond issues. The $100 million one, which was a disaster in the early 2000s, the $20 million Excel, and whatever other ones are on the books. On the $100 million one, when I mentioned on Saturday about holding the bag, what I meant was the property owners of Mount Vernon paying back the principal and interest, the 32% that wasn't reimbursable by the state, and getting poor workmanship. The Grimes School, the roof, heating and air conditioning. One room's 85, the next room there's no heat. The elevators don't work. There was a burst in the pipes. This building's 10 or 11 or 12 years old. What a disgrace. Now I heard that the Turner has problems too, but I'm not as familiar with the Turner. I don't know. I'm referring to the Grimes. The Grimes School was put up in 6 months, from March through September. They had to meet a September deadline. We don't want this to happen again. You want to make sure that all expenses are reimbursable by the state, 75%. Because I talked to Mr. Costello about the Grimes Annex a few years ago, and he said that wasn't reimbursable, so we're not going to do the Grimes
1 minute to
Annex.
summarize, Mr. Keller.
Okay. Mount Vernon High School, there was a plan to put all freshmen in Mount Vernon High School because we had excess capacity there, and we still do. And certain capital improvements would have had to be done. And they scrapped the plan because it wasn't reimbursable as part of the $100 million bond issue. So we want to make sure that all these expenses are reimbursable. Are there going to be new numbers from the architects? The architects are going to be hired. I understand Fuller and D'Angelo is no longer going to be the architect for this. I hope to see some new numbers in the next couple of weeks before the bond issue. How about a preliminary meeting with the three major credit bureaus, assuming all three credit bureaus, Fitch, Standard & Poor's, and Moody's are going to be rating these bonds, and what are the ratings on our bonds now that are outstanding? And what are the assumptions? It was pointed out that it was $7 for a house that was assessed at $10,000 going forward. But what are the assumptions? Does that assume assessments are going to remain the same? They've gone down for 15 years in this town. So the tax, is the tax levy
Thank you.
going to be the same? So we need some assumptions behind those numbers how much it's going to cost the taxpayer.
Mr. Keller, I'd like to respond to a couple of things that you raised, if that's all right.
Sure.
Firstly, in terms of the number of employees, there are two things. I don't remember if you were at the last meeting or not, but there was a report that we had increased our staff by 13%, and what that represented was new hires as well. It did not necessarily mean that all of these people were added to the staff. It included replacement staff, so that 13% was an inflation.
Yeah, I believe she said 13.5.
And additionally, that 1,900 number that you mentioned, that includes active subs in our district as well. So those are not all active employees. That includes substitutes that are hired on a per diem basis as well. So our ratio is not quite as you just reported. In terms of the bond and the new numbers on the bond, first of all, we did get two estimates on that bond, on that number that was put out. One was obviously a second opinion, so we're comfortable with those numbers, but certainly the architects, the new architects, have an obligation to verify that those numbers make sense based on the work that they propose to include. And on the average assessed value, we have to rely on the city to give us those numbers, so that calculation is based on the information as we know and understand it today. I don't know how that number will change or fluctuate, increase or decrease in years to come. I don't know that anybody would be able to predict that. So we based our calculation to the best of our ability based on the knowledge that we have today.
Well, I'm not questioning the $10,000 as the average of median assessment for a single-family home in Mount Vernon. What I'm questioning is, for the last 15 or 20 years, since Ernie Davis was elected in '95, every year, but maybe one or two, assessments have gone down. And that's a trend. I don't see it being broken. Maybe it will be, but anyway. And could you back out the per diem substitutes and long-term substitutes? Because the numbers that I gave you are contractual employees. They're not.
I'll ask Mr. Kuski to provide that information for you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Yes.
Just with information for the public, one item has been added to this evening's agenda. It is a retirement incentive with the Mount Vernon Federation of Teachers. And there are two items currently on the agenda that have been removed from action this evening. They're listed as information items.
You state what they are for the public.
The first item that was removed from the agenda for action this evening was item 9.1, approval of document from Fuller D'Angelo for preliminary design, schematic design, design development, and construction document for the Excel project for toilet renovations at Mount Vernon High School. And 9.6 approves general food service capital funds transfers for 2015-16. Both items are on for information, but you want to take them off the agenda and mess with the number structure.
Yes, good evening all. Just for your information, we have actually scheduled, there's a schedule online for any members of our public who would like to tour our schools and see how the bond will impact the necessary repairs and rehabilitation. That schedule is posted on the website for anybody who wants to take advantage of that. Mr. Felicio will be facilitating that. And we actually hosted an information session on the bond with local clergy this week, yesterday morning in fact. It was well attended. My takeaway from that session from the clergy is that they're very interested in getting consistent feedback on what's happening with the bond. The process, the status, the expenditures, and whether the work is being assessed and evaluated. So it may be prudent for us to explore having a committee, and I know we had talked about putting a committee together, an oversight committee just for reporting purposes, but it may be a good idea to expand that to include representatives from the various churches or representatives from the Clergy Association in particular, just to be responsive to their concerns. That would be something I'd like to take to Buildings and Grounds at the next meeting. And this week is National School Council Week. I'd like to read this proclamation into record. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas schools counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development, And whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children. And whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves. And whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. And whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school, therefore I, Kenneth Hamilton, do hereby proclaim February 1st through 5th, 2016 as National School Counseling Week. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
I don't have anything for the president's report today. So I'd like to go ahead and ask if there are any board members that want to remove anything from the consent agenda. We take it as a no.
Yes, no.
And so approval of the consent agenda items.
Motion.
Motion.
Second. Trustee Rose and trustee Newman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Next would be committee reports. And I'm gonna start with,
Seeing now, we're not meeting until February 25th at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Serene, anything, education?
No, that's the same.
Buildings and grounds, we continue to do walkthroughs of the 16 school facilities, identifying deficiencies internally and externally. And we do that about twice a week, 6:30 in the morning on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, doing one property each session. We also plan to organize probably a bi-monthly meetings with the architects and the in-house architect and the new bond architects to just talk about what their vision, ongoing vision is as they go through their assessment of what the work is for the bond that they're doing, just to make sure that they stay on track. So we figure as the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee, we do that on top of our weekly meetings. So that's something that we have to work out with administration in terms of coordinating that. Maybe we have it in the boardroom, maybe earlier that morning, maybe at 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning kind of thing. And also today, I toured about 14 of the 16 schools to identify curb appeal improvements that we could possibly do this coming fiscal year, pre-bond, before any bond money gets spent, because that bond money doesn't start till probably 17-18 school year. So in the next budget, we were talking with the business office in terms of what we could do to keep getting the schools better and improving. So we took a look at that, and I'll come up with a report tomorrow in terms of points that I feel that we could address to make the schools better.
I just have a special ed meeting coming up February 23rd at Rebecca Turner at 6 o'clock, from 6 to 8. And then we have another food pantry drive this Saturday, February 6th. Distribution starts at 9. Setup starts at 9:30. 10 o'clock distribution. Okay? So if you have any questions, you can call myself or Mr.
10 to 11.
10 to 11. Setup is at 9:30. Distribution is at 10.
You say February 23rd?
February 23rd, special meeting at Rebecca Turner Elementary School
What time?
at 6 o'clock. And And that concludes committee reports.
Did you let me in with Florrie, or?
Lori and I spoke about inventory at the schools, and she did a presentation on that type of inventory. I have nothing. So is there any unfinished business that anyone has to speak about?
Well, how about the bond? Well, I want to mention just a few things about Saturdays. Chester Hill Park, we had, the neighborhood association had a open Q&A meeting that the superintendent and some of our board members, most of us, attended. And that went really, really well. I've lived in this community almost 12 years now, and that's the first that I myself and my neighbors experienced actually a superintendent and a board coming locally to a community, to a neighborhood, to really explain something going on with the bond. Now, I was here during the last bond, actually maybe 2 bonds, and I never experienced this type of action by a board. And so the neighbors really appreciated it, and everyone left very informed and enthusiastic about the transformational changes happening in our community. So we plan to have more of these, and we would like to have more of these with other neighborhood associations. So I put it out there to the public that if there are some neighborhood associations that would like to get together an informal meeting, that I know the superintendent, and I don't want to speak for him, he could fill in, but he has been making himself very available to these, because it really helps when, instead of rumors traveling throughout the community as to what the bond represents, you hear it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And you can ask any question you feel comfortable in asking, and we give you fair and honest responses as much as to our knowledge. So it's been very positive, and it has been a very eye-opening experience for me in terms of the entire process. It's just very transparent and again, informative. So again, I encourage anyone who wants to put together an informal meeting about the bond, regarding the bond, through an association, homeowners association, neighborhood association. I know there are some very large apartment buildings, Park Lane, Vernon Manor, and so on and so forth, that have many community members inside. Maybe we could arrange something in one of the community rooms ongoing. This is, these small grassroots informative meetings are the best way to address the community and meet people face to face and talk about these issues. That's all.
Again, yes, just to reiterate that, I'm certainly available. I know there's a few coming up that are scheduled. I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but we'll put them on the website, so folks can just go on the website and find out where they're being hosted. I know March 4th is a big one that's at Thornton. March 4th is at Thornton.
February 29th is in high school.
February 29th is Mount Vernon High. And you know what? I'll put them on the website, and I'll put them in the board packet this week, so you, the board members, will have them. Or we'll post them on the website.
Anything else? Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Should I adjourn? Motion to adjourn? Motion. Second. I thought you had a question. All in favor?
Oh, yes, it did. I remember. What I was saying. Yes, that was it.